All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to My Next Raise and Next and Beyond's partner webinar today on how to become investment ready to scale your business. My name is Lisa Friedlander. I'm the CRO over here at Next and My Next Raise, and we are super excited to present this webinar to you today, which is just a critically important topic on how to take your business to the next level, secure outside investment, how to be successful, how to avoid common mistakes. We are honored to have our partner Beyond here with us today. We have Hector de Castillo, who is the Chief Product Officer of Beyond. And we have Herb Ezrin, who is the President and CEO of, excuse me one second. Well, just if you all don't mind staying on mute while we get started, that would be great. Hector and Herb have an amazing presentation for you with plenty of time for Q&A. So feel free to add your questions to the chat as we go along, or wait until the presentation is over, but we'll have plenty of time to address them. So without further ado, I will turn it over to the two H's. I have our two H's today. Hector and Herb, thank you guys so much for being here, and take it away.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. My name is Hector del Castillo, and I'm Chief Product Officer at Beyond. And I'd like to welcome all of you to today's discussion. As Lisa mentioned, I want to actually thank Lisa and also the entire team at Next for inviting us and hosting us for this particular talk. It's one that both Herbert and I are really hold dear to our heart, because this is what we do, is we help connect business owners and executives with the right investors as they need to fund whatever growth initiatives they're pursuing. And before I go any further, I just want to briefly introduce also Herb Ezrin. Herb, why don't we go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Herb Ezrin, I am the CEO and president of Potomac Business Group, which is an investment banking firm. My background, I've been a CPA, an attorney, and I've been doing investment banking work for about 35 years. Along with Hector and his partner, we help clients with fundraising, whether it's capital or financing, M&A transactions, and general consulting. Thank you.
And as Lisa mentioned, today we're going to have a short discussion about how to prepare your business to become investor ready. And in essence, we have just a few minutes, but we're going to have a Q&A, and probably about half of today's discussion, we really want to get your questions answered. So we're going to have a Q&A, so be sure to type in any questions as we move along. And it will be more than glad and more than happy to answer any questions once we get into the Q&A. So go ahead and type those into the chat as we go through. And as we get started, I also want to do a poll. Is first of all, how many of you are actually actively interested in raising for next year, whatever it is that you have planned for your companies? You can pick any of the available choices from the chat and just contribute via the chat. And then I will start the actual sharing my presentation as well. That's good.
Everybody's
Yes.
come to the right place.
Yes, definitely. All right. So today we're going to be discussing why actually sometimes growing or scaling your business, often you need more than whatever you can reinvest back into the business. And that's not unusual. It's very typical, especially if you have big, huge, ambitious growth goals. And often that's what happens. And often it's more than what you or your co-founders can reinvest in the business. So therefore, you have to look for interesting and perspective and the right investors that will see the value in your business to actually fuel your growth or expansion plans. And this discussion is going to be focusing on specifically identifying all those things. Here's a little more about us. I wanted to at least let you know that the short links here are basically our LinkedIn profiles. Be sure to follow us or connect with us afterwards, and we'll be happy to answer any additional questions if you have any specific questions. We're also going to have an offer because we actually going to have you, we're going to provide a full copy of the slides. And also we have a cheat sheet that we will be able to share with you, and then we'll give you information as to how you can actually access the resources after today's live discussion. A little bit more about Beyond. What we do is we fuel and we help drive greater growth for mid-market SaaS companies. We work mostly with mid-market executives and co-founders and help their organizations go to the next level of growth. And whether it's growth or scaling or growth through acquisition, we work with our clients to help them achieve faster growth quickly. So what we're going to be covering today is funding milestones. We're going to explain exactly what are the funding milestones. For those of you who have not had a chance to go through the different series of rounds, we're going to explain and also align that with the type of investors that you would be looking for based on where your company's life cycle is. Also, we're going to share a few tips on how to prepare your company to become investment ready. We're going to be summarizing key takeaways and then go into Q&A, and that'll be probably the last 20 minutes or so of today's discussion. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to type them in, share them via the chat, and then we'll be going through those during the Q&A portion of today's discussion. So first of all, why would you be interested in seeking investor funding? Any of these would be any combination of these would be the reasons why. Most of the time, the way we work with clients is because they need to turn their growth or expansion plans into hyperdrive. And that means that they need to spend more money faster in order to get to where they want to go within the time that they are intended to get there. And sometimes it's about attracting top talent. Sometimes it's about competing with larger players. And then often it's about scaling your operations or optimizing your operations so you can actually increase operational efficiency. And sometimes it's about growing through acquisitions. And other times it's about managing risk, because you might have changes in regulation or changes in the way that you need to deploy your business model. And often that either represents risk on the revenue side or on the supply side. And either way, it actually erodes your profitability. And often you have to figure out how to get back to where you were. So it's more typical to what your performance, your business performance is at. And then often it's also about just establishing long-term stability. Maybe you have these long cycles of when clients buy and when they kind of go away and don't come back until later. These are all things that are unpredictable, right? So you want to create predictability in the way you run your business so that you can then plan accordingly. And often you need to kind of fill in during those gaps of lack of demand and figure out what else you can do and keep your business running as efficiently as possible. So these are any combination of these are the reasons. I'm going to actually share a poll via the chat and ask you to tell me which of these are you most interested in. Those of you who are seeking funding, which combination of these things are you most interested in? If you can share via the chat, and I actually will give you information via the chat so you can just be able to respond with the answers that I'll be sharing with you. All right, so let's move on. There are 32 funding milestones for any company, depending on where you are in your life cycle. And not all of them are important for earlier phases or later phases, but they kind of build up over time. 32 funding milestones, and we're going to go through and explain how they map to each of the different phases. And we're going to go through 5 typical phases. And typically, this is what most businesses need to get beyond the small business stage, which by definition, if you go with SBA, if you're below 20 million in revenue, you are a small business. And most small businesses stay within that range for a long time. But when those of you who want to drive your company to become a mid-market company and then a bigger company later on, these are the different stages where you need to do, because linear is never growth. Growth is never linear. It's non-linear, and it goes in steps. And usually each one of those steps, as you're starting planning your next growth spur, you need additional funding, and usually at least 5 in order for any company to get to the lower middle market stage, which is already at around 50 million in revenue, all the way up to about $500 million in revenue. And then the lower middle market goes all the way to $1 billion in revenue. Most companies get lost in the small and the lower middle market stage, and they never get beyond that. It's those of you who understand how to actually get access to the right investors to go through these to fuel your growth and expansion plans that are the ones that actually make it successfully to become the upper middle market and then a larger company after that. And if you start implementing these things and knowing how to prepare, you're going to be much better at fundraising when you need to fuel your growth or expansion plans. So we're going to zoom in and talk about each one of these in this discussion. And I'm going to also ask Herb to share some things. So in the pre-seed milestones, kind of zooming in on just that one phase, pre-seed, this is where you actually are trying to get to a proof of concept. And perhaps you already have existing products, but now you have an idea or a concept for a new product that you want to figure out, is there going to be a market for this? You need to kind of isolate that and figure out what does it take for you to prove whether or not that concept for a new product is really going to get traction in the market. Is this really a need? Is it really fulfilling the right problem? And is this the right solution that the market wants? These are all the questions that you want to ask, and you need pre-seed funding for doing that for that new product. You can still have your current products and still selling them as usual, but often this is another way to say you're adding a new product into your portfolio of products. And Herb, I don't know if you have any stories to share about and any companies that you've helped at the pre-seed level.
Well, several of my stories will come a little bit later in the program, but when you get started, you need to think about the problem you were solving. What is missing in medicine, in technology, in hardware? What is it that you're trying to produce and bring into the market that is solving a major problem? That's the first thing investors want to know about. What have you accomplished? And when you take it from that level, then we're looking at, is the product or problem you are solving very necessary? Is it meaningful to investors? Does it interest them? Does it excite them? And is it really disruptive? And that's an important term to think about, because investors are looking for something that is disruptive and not out there in the market. And along with that, we're looking at what is competition. And one of the things we like to see in the documents is a competitive chart. We developed that many years ago to check off the different areas that your new product, your new technology will accomplish, and what is missing with competitors already in the marketplace. Where are you far better than they are? But the really important thing is to show investors the disruptive technology, and you need to, at some point, show to them how you're accomplishing that. Now, in the initial documents, you don't put the technology in, but in time, if you've got an interested investor, they're going to want to know more about the technology behind your product. Back to you, Hector.
Thank you so much, Herb. And then, of course, you have then the next one, which is seed. And seed is really for now that you validated the need for a new product, whatever product that is, now it is about going to market with a new product. And going to market means that now you need to even do more about understanding, are there any competitors, and how exactly is it that you're going to deliver? Where are you going to sell the product, and what distribution channels do you need to have in place? And all of this takes resources, funding in order to execute. And so seed funding is exactly for that, is going to market with a new product, even though you already have existing products in the market. Then once you get beyond that, the Series A will follow, and that is you want to now expand where you're selling the product, because if everything goes well, it'll sell, you'll exhaust, and then you're going to look for new opportunities to go back and sell a new batch of the same product and do this across your entire product portfolio. Often this expansion of setting up new distribution channels or opening up new markets, all of that takes additional resources, support, and funding. And that's what the Series A is all about. So it's about establishing and building and expanding your brand value for your business. It's about reaching out to more stakeholders and then be able to grow in revenue and profitability over time. That's what Series A is, and the difference between Seed A and Series A. And then beyond that, we'll come back to more examples, because I also share via the chat a second poll. Each one of these phases, you would like to go to different types of investors, because there are specific investors that specialize in funding companies depending on which of these 5 phases you're in. And you need to know that up front, because if you try to go when you're in the pre-seed funding to the wrong investors, you're just in essence wasting your time. So you need to have that clarity as to what type of investors should be the right ones based on where you are and in your fundraising life cycle. So
let me mention a couple things, Hector. One is the investors you're seeking, many of them invest only in certain areas, certain industries. So what we help you do is find, if it's a medical device, we take you to medical device investors. We don't take you to a software investor. So we're really trying to do that. Now, the important thing that Hector just mentioned in selling the product, one of the last questions I usually get from investors is, prove to me you can sell it. And so I would presume most of you attending today are pre-being out in the marketplace. It's a tough question to answer, but they do want some way that you can enthusiastically show them you can sell the product.
Series B and Series C is basically about continuing to expand across markets, maybe turn on new distribution channels, any combination of those. Often it's also maybe about growing through acquisition, looking for the right companies, especially when there's a lot of disruptors, usually smaller companies. And there comes a time when they're at the right time for you to pick, because there's so many of them. They're not necessarily capturing any major part of the market share, and you already have an established market share, and you have that power that you can actually start acquiring smaller players and actually build more value to your business, because now you're integrating their technologies and their solutions into your own portfolio. And that's another strategy, and that's where you need additional funding for possibly a Series B or C type of funding. In essence, as Herb also pointed out, you have to be very focused and specific, laser targeted on who is the right and ideal prospective investor for you. And often these are the things that you want to start preparing for, because it's not any investor, it's only certain types of investors. This is where we can help you, but also you can start by developing this on your own as you are putting together all the things that you need to help your company become investment ready. So we actually have this cheat sheet that we actually are going to be offering to you for free. And we're going to, Herb and I are going to go through this. There are 5 steps to this. And loosely, I can just say that at the very beginning, especially when you are at the pre-seed or seed level, it's all about building the right credible management and advisor team for your business, because that's what the first thing is. It doesn't matter what the product is or what the problem you're trying to solve. When you don't have a track record of actually already establishing yourself as a business in any market, the investors will look, especially when you're looking at pre-seed or seed level funding, they're looking at, number one, your management and your team of advisors. And they're looking to make sure that you have 0 gaps, that between you and your team, you are able to understand not only the right problem to solve, you validated the problem, you already have the right solution, and that's a product that is ready to go to market, or you have to build an MVP, a minimum viable product, to do further testing. But that often you'll have a clear understanding of what the market is, who your target customers are, who are your collaborators, who's your competition, what is the business climate, and why is this the right time to introduce this product into the market. These are all things that they rely on the expertise and experience of your team. And that's what most investors, when you're in the pre-seed or seed stage, that's what they're looking for, number one. Then number two, it's all about really looking at, do you have a credible financial plan? Do you have a credible business plan? And of course, the business plan, for those of you who have not put one together, it's a living document, right? As you are looking at putting together your expansion plans, your growth plans, you need to update and create the next version of the business plan and put all the details in that are relevant about all the things that I just stated, the business climate, why is this the right time to introduce this new product? What is the product and what is the market? Who are the buyers? Who are the users? All those things. Who are your collaborators? What is the competition? What is your unique differentiator? All these things that are going in a business plan is what you need to put together, document clearly, and make sure you have lots of documentation as to why, justify each and every answer as to why you're going in this direction. And then, of course, what everybody scrutinizes is the financial statements that you put and disclose. Not only how much it's going to take, how long, who's going to get involved, the expertise and talent that you need. Make sure you have at least access to that talent, and also spell out the resources and support, and then the level of funding that you're going to spend, and then estimate and forecast how soon you will get to revenue and how long before you get your return on investment. Whatever you sunk into designing and developing and testing and delivering the product, make sure that you have clarity as to what is that break-even period, how long, and how many units would you want to sell, and then what is the ROI to early investors that will fund that particular scope of whatever's in your business plan. These are all things that are part of your financial statement. And the next step is to prepare for due diligence. There will be due diligence from and you start with by what the investors will ask you, all the documentations besides the business plan, and know what to expect. We can provide you a checklist, and then basically will be your preparation to make sure you have documents for everything that is on that checklist that is critical, because that's all part of investor due diligence. And then also that you have information about yourself and your co-founders, your management team, to make sure that you can also state the right things that are relevant regarding your expertise and your experience in that specific type of business or that market that you're looking to expand on. And then finally, it's all about putting the rest of the information that I just said about the information about the market, the competition, and also understand why is this the right time, and understand the risks involved. And there's always going to be risks. So just like any annual report that you see for a major company that has this litany of risk factors that are on their annual reports, a business plan for someone that's looking for that should also identify all the major risk factors that are typical or relevant in the market, in the industrial sector where you play in, and in what you're trying to achieve. And so all of this becomes part of a more detailed business plan. And the more detail that you include that is fact-based, you'll be better off. And at this point, I just kind of want to let Herb kind of state, actually ask her if you have any examples of what happens from your experience dealing with clients when they're missing any of this information that is across any of these 5 major areas here.
Let me talk about a couple of things first. Under number 1, the corporate. It's very important how you set up your corporation. Angel investors will invest in an LLC or an S corporation, but your family offices, your VCs, your PEs will only invest in a C corp. So you need to be prepared if you start off with an S corp because of the pass-through of expenses that would create losses for your tax returns. But at some point, you have to move forward into a C corporation. Now, once you get past everything that Hector has laid out for you, now you're before an investor group. What do you say with the investor group? What we have done over the years is to help you with that. We take practice sessions. We do like a moot court operation. We throw questions at you and show you how to answer the questions. And it's very important what you do and follow up because eventually all investors want to talk to the entrepreneur. We can present them, bring them to you, get you set up with them, but they want to hear from you. And I've had some instances in which it has failed, even though we have practiced with it. I had a major corporation in the offices of my client ready to invest $4 million. It was sitting there almost on the table. And one of the presidents of this large company said to my client, "Tell me if I give you the $4 million, how will you spend it?" Now, we had practiced with this client. He knew exactly what he was going to use the money for, but he fumbled and said, "Well, that's something I need to work on." And it ended the whole meeting. The second type I had was a client who had a government contracting business that he was selling, and he was entering into a new company in data mining. And I got him before a good group of investors interested in the company, and the book is right in front of them. And the head of the company said to my client, "Tell me, if we give you the money and you move over to the new company in data mining, what are you going to do with your existing company?" Very simple answer. "I'm selling the company. I've got a buyer ready to step up to the plate with me." But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he says, "Well, I'll get my wife to run that company." Didn't say anything about the wife, didn't say what her background is, didn't say if she was capable, just made that statement, and the investor closed his book. So it's very important, and the practice session that we spend time going through to make sure when you meet the investor and you were in front of the investor, you were prepared with the type of questions they will ask.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And what I want to say is also we're basically one of the biggest things is that most investors will actually request a pitch and a pitch deck. Here's sort of a framework that you can follow to put together 10-slide compelling pitch about what you intend to do, and all the details that are in it that would follow from this slide deck to include conversations would include the details that would be on a more detailed business plan as to what are the plans and how are you planning to use the funds that you get, how much do you need, and for what, and for how long, and how long, what's in it for the investors. You got to answer that question, and that is how long before they can see ROI. And those are all things that you need to have clear answers based on your modeling, financial modeling, and going through all the what if scenarios so that you can actually answer those questions with high confidence, but also in a credible way, and that you can continue conversations and basically get to closing, which means you get the funding in place and you get a term sheet so you can actually start implementing your growth and expansion plans. So these are the kinds of things that we do. And I just want to wrap up and say, finding the right investors, here are things that you can do on your own, because you can do this on your own. But you'll find is that even if you are very optimistic about the type of company you have, you're going to find out that very few people actually will see the value. But this is where we can help you. But if you start by doing these things, you can at least start by understanding the type of investor that you need based on your current, where your company is, and the type of funding phase that you're in, based on our discussion. Leverage your network and start looking for investors, and then attend industry events where you can meet prospective investors, and also then utilize online platforms. There's a lot of crowdfunding platforms available now. I don't know if that would be the right way, but I would see that may be a possibility if you are maybe after pre-seed or seed funding, but it's not necessarily the best online platforms to go after if you're in later series type of funding. And then seek introductions to investors. These are the action things that you can take today. And more than happy if you want to have a discussion about the way that you are planning to raise. I'm actually going to share this because we're about to get into Q&A. But before that, I have another question that I'd like for you to answer via the chat. And that is, what is your biggest challenge in becoming investment ready now that you've known this? And I'm just going to go over some key takeaways on this. And this basically matches to that cheat sheet that I showed earlier. First one is you want to build a competent leadership team. The leadership team should include not just your executive team or your management team, but also your team of advisors, especially if you are in a pre-seed or seed level type of funding. And you find that as you go into higher series type of funding, often your leadership team needs to expand as well. And number two, create a scalable business model, which means you have to have a detailed business plan that is about growing or scaling your business, and put all the details that are usually in a business plan as to what you intend to do, how much do you need, what are the resources and support, and how long is it going to take you to actually get to where you want to be, and what is the ROI for investors. Then establish a strong financial plan. There's a lot of people that, depending on the complexity of their business, they actually do. We recommend that they do financial modeling on both their cost structures as well as revenue streams, so that they know exactly all the different scenarios, and they can present not the best case scenario, not the worst case scenario. So it's something that is most likely, that's in between, that will still have the right revenue growth and then the right EBITDA growth projected based on that plan. But you've gone through all the what if scenarios, and you're actually make a much better answering any questions about the what ifs and the risk factors that could be triggered along the way if you get funding, when investors are asking you during due diligence, what are you planning on doing, right? Then preparing for due diligence is all about that. It's doing all this so that you can prepare for due diligence, know exactly how to answer questions, investor questions, as they're digging deeper into your business. And before you get a term sheet, this is what you want to be able to do. Then identify and mitigate key risk factors. Once you identify those, be sure that you can at least identify the ones that you can take care of before you even get funding or before you even approach investors. And then, Herbert, I wasn't really sure if you had something to share.
Yeah, I want to just talk a little bit about financials and what investors initially look at to determine if they will really follow through and read your business plan, review your pitch deck. You need that opening statement to interest them, to excite them, that it's something they want to see. The next thing they look at are the financials. And if they're satisfied with financials, they may go forward. Now, with financials, that's a very difficult item to prepare, particularly when you don't have a sales revenue background. How do you determine what your revenue is going to be in years 25, 26, 27, and what are your expenses? And it's very important to look at the assumptions, the revenue assumptions, the cost of sales assumptions, and the expense assumptions. Expenses are probably the easiest to do, but it takes a while to put it together, and your advisors need to be on board with you about them. They will review the financials and agree, because you're really saying to investors, this is what we're going to produce in the next few years. And if I'm the investor, I'm going to sit back and look at it and say to you, how do you know you're going to get that type of sales in? So preparing the financials is very, very important on how you come up with the assumptions.
Yes. Thank you and thank you for clarifying that, because I agree. I think that this is all very important to be able to be prepared ahead of time. And sometimes preparation is key. It takes homework, and you're better off, and you do be more successful, like actually successfully getting funded, when you're doing your homework ahead of time. And it's time for Q&A. So one of the things that I wanted to do is, be sure to type in any questions you might have. We're monitoring the chat, and we can proceed. And as you're typing in questions, we'll be monitoring the chat. Here's a URL where you can actually grab a copy of the cheat sheet we put together, the one slide that we put together. We actually put it into a downloadable cheat sheet that we'll make available for you for free. All you have to do is scan the QR code here and request your copy. And the other thing that we'll do, if you actually request your copy of this, we'll also send you a link where you can actually view the entire slide deck of today's discussion that we've shared with you. So we'll have a downloadable, two downloadable objects. One will be the cheat sheet, and the other one will be the slides that we're showing for this particular discussion. So you can actually review them and maybe ask additional questions or do your own research as needed, as you're looking to seriously look to find the right funding.
Hector, we've got one question that's come up already. Gentleman says he has two startups, software integration platform and a crypto tax analyzer. And his question is, I need to understand what kind of investor I need to look for and be investor ready. Well, this is probably easy for us to answer, because it's going to be an investor interested in new technology and has a background in technology. Skip the medical investors, skip the retail investors. They will not understand this and they're not interested in it. But the technology investors, and particularly those that we find with a background in technology and understanding, are the ones to go to. And they're easy to be found through the networks, I should say. You want to add anything to that, Hector?
I would say that this is our specialty. Beyond, we work with specifically SaaS and technology companies that are looking to get into the mid-market if they're not already there, or get to the next level of growth. And we specialize on that. We realize that sometimes SaaS is broad, because sometimes you're often selling into not one, but multiple industrial sectors, and those are your customers and users. We actually work with companies that very early on, even as they are in the small business or even the lower middle market stage, they're wanting to grow, and they're already regional in scope. They actually have talent, not just in one market, but across different markets. And we work with those type of companies, because that's our bulk of our experience, having operating and then successfully growing SaaS and technology companies. And we will help you understand all the details that you need to know and how to prepare your business to get to the next level of growth, and find the right investors that you can connect with so that you can get successfully funded for your growth.
Okay, thank you. I think we can probably touch base, like say, after the meeting. Yeah.
Yes, I would say get a hold of us. Our contact information is here. You can set up a free appointment with us by following this short link, It's our booking link, and we can have a discussion. You can book on whatever time you're available, and we can have a conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Any other questions? I want to make sure that at least we cover everything.
I don't see any other questions.
Okay. Yeah,
Folks, we're a small group. Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question. And of course, you can continue to put it in the chat, but feel free to unmute yourself and chime in as well.
Yes.
This is incredible information, Hector and Herb. We really appreciate you providing it in connection with My Next Raise. Folks who are already signed up for My Next Raise, take a look at the tools that what Hector and Herb are spoken about. There's lots of tools in there. I completely agree with all of the sentiments and importance of this checklist. It's really great. And if you guys are okay with it, we'd love to add the checklist there as well. But a lot of the investor readiness tools within My Next Raise would go a long way to supplement the work that Hector and Herb do on a regular basis.
Yes.
And Lisa, thank you for setting this up with us.
Yes, really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Of course.
Is there something else on the chat? I see that. Is there another question? Oh,
No,
okay.
I don't see any more.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, before we drop off, I'm going to share this
But I think
information.
somebody might have was trying to chime in. Yeah, Laura, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this great presentation and all of this information. One thing I'm curious about, partly because I've gotten some of this advice before, but I'm curious to hear what you would say. As an engineering, coming from an engineering direction, what are your recommended reads or podcasts for understanding all of the business side terminology, the finance terminology, and so on? I've been actively pursuing this over the summer, doing a lot of studying, but I'm curious what you would recommend.
Sure. Actually, we Beyond, we actually publish tips and insights for entrepreneurs like yourself that want to figure out how to actually successfully get funded or get connected to the right investors, how to grow and scale your business when you have ideas about that take a lot of design and development and come up with a complex, build a complex product that has all these different ways that you can actually introduce it to market. So what we do is, I would say the first thing you should do is follow us on LinkedIn. We publish articles and tips for free and on a regular basis, and you can start with that. But we also do ongoing discussions as well, and we're more than happy to invite you, because we invite anybody who's following our page on LinkedIn. And for one example is this particular webinar. Yes, it's part of what Lisa was setting up through Next. We actually, set up our own LinkedIn events, and then we invite our followers to attend. And these are all typically free because they're either online or they're hybrid. So I would say follow us, would start with that. And then we can provide you more information if you send me directly once we connect. I can send you a list of additional resources, podcasts, and other things that I would recommend that you follow. There's lots of those influencers on LinkedIn and also other social media channels.
Any other questions? Right. Well, thank you so much, Hector and Herb. We really appreciate your sharing your expertise for what you guys do on a regular basis, what you see from the market, and sharing this information. Folks, I will be circulating an email connecting you with Hector and Herb, as well as the recording for today. And as Hector mentioned, just reach out if you'd like a copy of the presentation as well. If you're a My Next Raise user, please get in there and start using some of the tools. We hope to hear from you. We love any feedback as you participate in the beta, and we look forward to many more of these types of events in the future. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It was a pleasure, and thanks for inviting us to do this. It was great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's okay.